Добрый день, уважаемые
Well,
гости.
this is the time, and this is the time, and I would like to welcome you. I would like to welcome you in this lecture from the Inno Stage company. This is the part of the Positive Hack Days. In our company, Inno Stage Veris, we strive for very harmony kind of communication between the digital worlds and the real world. So today we are going to hear scientific and relevant discussions on the biohacking, physiology, microbiome, and the way to achieve happiness. Of all things, it is not all about cybersecurity, and our speakers, who you'll be able to see in here today, they are renowned experts. They will share their unique perspective and knowledge and fresh research, which will help you to get a new perspective on abilities of your body and mind. So let's get ready, buckle up for this travel into the world of science. Any questions which you guys can send in, can you please put a QR code on the screen, if you will, please, and you can give it to your friends, and this QR code will take you to a Telegram bot, chat bot, where you can write whatever you want, any of your idea, any of your questions for our presenters, which I'm going to voice when we'll go to Q&A. By no means we are depriving you of the microphone, but out of the questions that you will send in Telegram, we'll ask each presenter to choose one of the best, interesting, memorable, whatever it is, and we are going to reward you for those. So the second thing, the seconds I'm going to be nerdy here, please do not forget to change your devices into the silent mode. And, well, with this, let's begin our event. Our lectorium will begin with a neurobiologist on the topic of biohacking in neurophysiology, myths, reality, and consequences. Our speaker will tell us whether biohacking will be able to better our brain, slower aging, and improve our health, and what would be safe and what would be dangerous to your health, or even useless. And today we'll get the science on biohacking, pharmacology, dietology, physiology. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Vyacheslav Dubynin.
Огромное спасибо, что смогли присоединиться сегодня к нам.
Hello, thank you for joining us today, Vyacheslav, and so I'm going to sit down and listen to you. Hello, I hope you can hear me well, because sometimes I'm a little bit confused when you have a headset, because if you have a microphone, you speak into the microphone. But anyway, it sounds like the sound is great, great weather, great place and location, and Moscow University just across the river, staying at my workplace. And I was given about 40 minutes to talk about how neurophysiology treats biohacking. A short intro about myself. If you did not know me, well, it's a bummer. I'm trying to be quite proactive and quite visible in the media, simply because I have been professor of the Moscow State University for over 20 years, and I've been involved in science studies for almost 40 years. I'm also reading lectures to mathematicians, biologists, and many others. How to, you guys speaking about the neuroscience and deep learning, and we, neurophysiologists, myself and many others, back in the 90s, we were sharing about that, about the neural networks. So I give overviews and lectures, and I'm also involved in neuropharmacology, and I talk about human efficiency. I talk about how to help our memory, how to control emotions, what is now known as a biohacking, which seems to be a buzzword. But anyway, behind all of those skills and knowledge, and first of all, it's about your conscious attitude toward your body and your brain. It's my belief that, and in terms of neurophysiology, our personality is quite complex, but not a huge program which has been preset on the neural network about in this area of your brain. in this kind of back area of your brain. And due to verbal activity, there is like an analog of GPT chat, and this is the basis of our personality. And this thing in our brain attempts to rule all of our processes in our brain, in our bodies, and the biohacking is basically making decisions about a certain pattern of behavior. Whether it's going to be like right nutrition, right movement, using some food supplements, it's the next level. But it all starts that at some point you are making a decision that, okay, it would be great to learn more about my own body, or help my body, for that matter. And even our brain is not me, it's a big computer machine that I exist in, and I need to take care of this part and of this part. And this is how, by getting more knowledge about ourselves, we're becoming more responsible users of our body and neural system. And you gotta live and learn. Like they say, Homo sapiens is distinct because we're born with empty neural network, at least in our hemispheres. There's almost nothing. But then, as you exist and live, we are acquiring information and become more and more efficient. And also, due to new information, we get a lot of positive emotions. And if we are also using knowledge to make us more healthy, to live longer, then it's even better. So, when it comes to knowledge and our efficiency and the way we are doing anti-aging thing, let's begin. Let's begin with a definition of our topic. So, biohacking is a notion. It's about responsible attitude toward your body and in quite clear ways of helping your body to exist more efficiently. Again, longevity and being positive. Biohacking is, you remember healthy lifestyle back in the Soviet Union. What are the differences between healthy lifestyle and biohacking? Well, healthy lifestyle, it's something back from the 20th century when we did not know much about, specific Homo sapiens, so to say, and recommendations were like general. It would be great to move more, it would be great to eat such and such food and sleep. Biohacking is different because it's much more custom-tailored, individualized for a particular individual. And because modern technologies and biotechnologies in particular enable to collect genetic information on each of us, to do a lot of blood samples and tests on the immune system and hormones and work of your heart and you name it. We can develop recommendations much more individualized. And also, thanks to the aforementioned artificial intelligence, in the last couple of years, I would say, we got a new field of study. And I believe that maybe even a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, or I'm sorry, 2 years into the future, if you'll have a desire, if you'll have some material, money, of course, because you have to pay for it. So, in a couple of years' time, each of us will have like individual health consultant. That is AI, health AI, which will be fine-tuned for you. It's going to take your samples, take your body data, and also information about your behavior, food, and your mode of the day, and give you individualized recommendations. Something like a very personal, very motivated doctor, who also, by giving you certain recommendations, will be able to take into account your genetic code, the data of your family and your family tree, because what we have in our body is really closely connected with genes. Anyway, now biohacking is becoming more and more available because we have neural networks who can learn. Because like 3 years ago, the notion of biohacking was something about, rich people, rich guy, a real crazy biohacker. Because if you need to do a lot of samples, you spend millions, and it was not easy. Now things are getting easier, more affordable, and each of us have a unique body. We have a unique set of genes, unique immunity, unique structure of our neural networks in our frontal core. We are users of these biosystems. You will not get another body and another brain. So the sooner you think about how to communicate with your body in a reasonable way, the more success you will have in your lifetime and the longer you will live. Because sooner or later we're going to get old. We're not simply to live for 100 and 120 years, but to live healthy and wealthy and positively. So getting this longevity and happiness, it's closely related whether we understand our body and whether we take care of our body on an individual level. If we begin to get involved in biohacking, level one is, of course, getting your genetical passport. Some time ago, back in the end of the 20th century, that was the first genetical, passport. Through the activity of many scientific organizations, a couple $1 million have been spent. Now, it's again becoming much more affordable, like between $250 and $100. You can get your own evaluation of your genetic card, and each of us is a certain DNA of our parents. So your dad's sperm came to the mom's egg. You can see this scene on the screen if you'll find it. And they combined their genes so that our unique body would come into being. Each of us is unique. And you can say, like, okay, two deck of cards, dads and moms, take 50% from each of the deck, and here you go. And if you're lucky, you get like super classy, you're a genius, blah, blah, blah. If not, still thank you, because if not for your mom and dad, you would not be here. And anyway, each of us, we have a certain like presets of different sets of genes. We have about 22,000 genes, and part of those presets really impacts a level of giftedness and your predisposition to diseases now and in the future. And if you know that, you can cushion that. You can also analyze your closest relatives, and this is level one when we step into biohacking. Again, just imagine that some AI collected your samples, your body samples, and also those from your family, and now you get more information because you see pros and cons of your innate functioning, both of your body and your brain. Next, additional to DNA, you can get many more samples, like lots of samples and regular samples. And as a matter of fact, this is a serious challenge, because we're lazy. By the way, it's also innate program, being lazy. And every 6 months go and do your test. You gotta be a fan of it. But still, I'm assuming that quite soon we will have the right devices and not super expensive, which will tell you, okay, do not forget to spit into the in vitro, in the tube. So to evaluate parameters of our body, we do not need to do the blood samples or things like that. And sometimes you can build in, even in our toilets, is a lot of data. You do your thing, you go to toilet in the morning, and then look at this kind of database, artificial intelligence, get information about your cholesterol level, your microbiome, and you name it. So this set of standard testing is super important. And first of all, it applies to the weakest part of our body, which we try to compensate for. This would be cardiovascular. And smart gadgets right now are monitoring not only your pulse, but also stability. And this is about the balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic system, how you react to stress. And all this, again, is being eaten by these huge databases, and you can get a lot of insights. Next, hormones. We have our weak spots, like insulin level, thyroxine level, what's in your blood, and again, this would be sugar, cholesterol, and then some kind of diabetes, you name it. Iron. Iron is the most deficit microelement. It's even more in deficit than vitamins. So if you take, like a regular person living in a city, like in a Moscow kind of greenish skin color in February and March. It's anemia, lack of iron, and that's why all the members of your body are not working good because iron needs for oxygen. You gotta monitor it. So the food that we're eating goes through a big food industry. You know what I mean? It's not like you're eating game which has been caught in a deer meat caught in a forest. Nobody does that, right? Nowadays. And even if you're eating meat products, so I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess. How do you get iron? Even chicken breast, why it's so white? Not much of iron in it. And those food corporations convince us that this is the right meat, chicken. Actually, it's the most not really tasty even. Red meat. You know why red meat? The more red, the more iron you have. So whales, we are not eating whales anymore because they have tons of iron. Anyway, Jamaican, or you have this kind of. Anyway, they say that. They say iron, back in the Soviet Union, they were giving special bars, hemoglobin bars to kids. Anyway, there are many parameters working of our immune system and inflammations, chronic inflammations. That's a bad thing. And it also impacts our brain. You can do EEG. You can regularly get the data, put it into AI model, and it's going to give you recommendations related to different aspects of your life and being. And what we can impact. Where are those points which enables us to increase our efficiency? And in terms of biohacking, they are, effective zone of impact on our health. Number one, what is the most important is sleep, your sleep. This is the most undervalued resource. The problem is, it seems to us that because of the sleep, we can save an hour, 2 hours, and do something. That is not always helpful. Just to sit and, in the media playing the game. You cannot save on your sleep. It's a bad idea. And I recommend you to watch my lectures on sleep online, where I'm giving you detailed perspective, what are the stages of sleep serving its function. We are sleeping about in 1.5 cycles. Here in the bottom, I'm showing you 5 or such sleep cycles. There is a happy person, sleeping 7.5, and each cycle is a blue and red. Blue is rest, it's a low wave, slow wave, and red would be paradoxon. During the slow sleep, your body is cleaning up from waste, and also it has been shown that our brain having disconnected from sight, from hearing and touching, analyzing signals from your body and correcting your heart work, your stomach, your gallbladder, and things like that. So during your sleep, your brain is healing your body, restoring your body's optimal state, what is called homeostasis. The red zone is paradoxical sun. It's sleep, sorry. It's writing from short memory into long memory and continuing cognitive process and data analysis. Oftentimes so it's a 1 hour slow sleep, 20 paradox, and on and off it goes. So the first 2 cycles, our brain is dealing with the data we've accumulated during the day, like yesterday, and then the next 20 minutes would be about tomorrow. So 4 cycles, you need to have at least 4 cycles. Of course, if you're 25, 30, it's okay, it's fine. You can afford different kind of, but if you're 40 plus, you need to think about good amount of sleep. And also in sleep, you gotta go to bed about the same time. When people tell you, 1 before the midnight is better than 2 hours after midnight, these are the larks, larks and owl. If you're like me, you're an owl, you go to bed 2 p.m., it's fine. But you need to get 4 cycles. If you go to bed 2, wake up at 8, for example, and thanks to all kind of hormonal signals, cortisol, melatonin, even our bodies, they adjust. Yes, of course, we go to bed at 2 a.m., wake up at work. But if you go to 2 a.m., you can say that you cannot eat after 6 p.m. Well, you can eat it even at midnight. All of us have our own mode. So these kind of owls and larks you can see on the screen, they are not just literature. In 2017, a Nobel Prize was given to those guys who described those genes, which are responsible for chronotype. And if you're really lark or an owl or a dove, you gotta accept yourself and live in this mode. And people say, this is the way I am, and I'm comfortable. Living and breathing and living like that, and work at night, for example, as an owl, I can tell you that I'm working through the night, and I can do some good things. Anyway, second important aspect of our efficiency is movement. Mostly you are computer guys, your guys are sitting at the table and punching keyboard, but also it will be a good idea to make this kind of strong keyboard so you can really press and push on those buttons. It reminds me of the Soviet kind of resort places where there's a huge chessboard and you gotta move them, this chessboard, and you're kind of pumping your muscles. Probably you can come up with some kind of keyboard to be able to work on your muscles. But actually, hypodynamia is not a joke. And if you were sitting at the computer table, then you're sitting in your car, then you're sitting in your computer table at home on the couch. You do not move. Those 10,000 steps is real, so the movement means a lot. In evolution, Homo sapiens was jumping all over the place in savanna, and this kind of movement area requires huge resources from your body. All these muscles, we have 400 muscles. Each cell is, managed by the brain. So we have 90 billion neurons. When you calculate, it looks like 60 of them, 60 billion neurons, 70%, they're about movement. They manage muscle movement, they remember muscle programs, and we have 30 billion for the rest, like eyesight, hearing, touching, thinking, emotions. It's also a lot, but the movement is super important. So when you're moving actively, that's good for your brain, because there is an overall activation to movement. It is not only joy for your heart and for your joints and muscles, but also for your nervous system. And school teachers and doctors, they know about this kind of motorics, like kids doing something with origami, they do some kind of movement. It's great for this their whole brain. And it stays small, complex movements, not even small movements, but dance and sport. All of this is just super great. Not only you activate your neural network, also, when you move, you get good and positive emotions. Whenever you do something right for your body, your brain generates good emotions. It's like a universal psychological currency, which is saying, yeah, you're doing the right thing. And when we move, we get dopamine secreted. And dopamine in your body is a main mediator and source of positive emotions in two important aspects. There is a separate dopamine networks, like about movements and creativity and newness. So the movement dopamine is the best of them. So to move is to get positive emotions. And kids like it. That's why they're moving more. And adult brain is more lazy. You're trying to economize. So you gotta take effort to be able to move yourself into this paradigm. And the latest scientific discoveries tell us that proactively working muscles, they secrete myocines. And those myocines, they improve your heart situation, they launch the fat breakdown, and also they have positive impact on your neural network, especially centers of memory in hippocamp. So they actively working muscles that tell the body thank you for contracting and moving, which is cool. So movement is also colossally important, although you gotta be like reasonable about that, because if you are doing like a super extreme sports and you're breaking your bones and kind of willing your joints, it's a little bit too much. So our body is like a car. If you don't drive it, it's get rusty. But if you drive and on a potholes, you're gonna break it in 15 years. So don't go to extremes, but you gotta move. Next, food. Food is the most important component, next important component in biohacking and healthy lifestyle is your food. And food is a source of energy, building blocks, and most importantly, your positive emotions, and the most reliable one. So we're made in this way that the food gives us these endorphins, and you can go to a theater, you may not like a theater, you may have a fight with your friend, but a piece of good meal at the right time will never cheat on you. That's why people overeat. That's why go on a diet is almost to get into depression. And basically, this is not easy. So this main dietology kind of statement, let's move more and eat less, yes, it makes sense. But we do not want to move less and to move more and to eat less. It's about the joy, depriving yourself of joy. So it's a lifelong kind of quest. But if you're limiting yourself in calories, in volume of what you're eating, you begin to think, okay, what am I eating? Fats, carbs, and proteins. There are some molecules, replaceable things which we can do, and non-replaceables, which we get only with food. And so emphasis is on those micronutrients. And for example, all the carbs can be replaceable, but fats are not. And and proteins, they have 20 amino acids, and half of them are not replaceable. And you got to think about how to combine those, and also minerals. Minerals, I've mentioned about iron, for example. And once again, the food that we're getting right now, buying in retail, it has gone through the big industrial kind of process. And oftentimes, it's been so treated, we have no idea what it's made of, like ultra-processed foods. And of course, these ultra-processed foods, they have a lot of glutamate and salts and sugar that it impacts your those chips and ice cream. You want to keep eating this forever. It's a problem. Like the food control, overeating, and gaining weight. Gaining weight, there's also like a lot of separate issues. For example, your fat fabric may lead to inflammation, which is not good for your brain and body. And also excess of sugar, excess of salt. They lead to diabetes, hypertonics, and also the work of, we'll be speaking about our ingestion. And so far, I'm going to stop this. And next is a cognitive workload. Cognitive workload, it's a component of biohacking. You absolutely have to have some cognitive exercise and workload because our neural networks, they want to work. A child is born. 30 billion neural networks in big hemispheres. It's like a pre-installed. And then for the first 2.5 years, there is like a sprouts going out and basic neural network is being formed. Contacts, synaptic contacts, and also in about 2.5 years, all those contacts which already pass on information in child's brain is like most of all. The next 7 years, about 7 years, 20 or 30% of those synaptic contacts will go away because not all components of these networks are getting workload or being used simply because we have 24 hours hours in a day, and you cannot study, programming, chess, and do music, and teach 2 languages, and also like 3 kind of sports. You simply cannot do it, right? It's like too much. That's why those contacts and channels in the brain, which are active, proactive, they stay, and those which do not get workloads, they're being broken apart. And again, it's energy-saving component. It's like a pruning, like cutting this kind of living brain sprouts. In the first 10 of the years, it's optimizing our neural network. But then it is important to load your neural network, your neurons, with the interesting amount of information which you've had in the childhood. All this pruning will continue. After 40, it's very expressed. And after 40, you've been working in very like a bad work job that you do not like. About 0.5% of your synaptic connections you're losing every year.
And this is deterioration and degradation. It's just a different problem. So, the load helps you to secrete dopamine and working with anxiety. So what's important is to immerse your neural net with new interesting tasks, but not only for input, but for output too. You can't be just a consumer of certain content. It's like fast food in diet. That's why you have this information fast food. And actually, I have this picture here that you can look at. Because when we receive new information, we produce dopamine. Yes, it's positive emotions. Ideally, this new information is supposed to help us learn something, to master something, to remember something, so that our thinking became more complex. But the system is built in such a way that's enough for us to learn new, and we already enjoy it. And for a person to use information for personal growth, you kind of sit in watching videos how they cut cucumbers or how cats play and all that, so you get dopamine, but there is no use for that. It's kind of meaningless. You could have spent this time for something more promising. So that's why this term information fast food, that's why they're talking about a dopamine detox. And actually, in normal language, it means you put off your smartphone and do something else. That's why we say it's very important to have information, not only for input, but for output too, to tell somebody something, to have a public talk, and maybe to write a text. So all this allows you to use information in order to grow, to develop yourself, and to form a powerful brain. And later on, this brain becomes more targeted, more target-oriented. You become more aware, more informed. There is no microchip that you're going to insert in your brain that will help you. And again, this task of developing your neural network is a lifelong task. As a very important component of biohacking, this is stress management. And stress management and stress happens in any situation. And as you know, there is a short and chronic stress or acute stress. And acute stress, if it's not too long, and after that you had a victory and the best and all that, so it's just a source of positive emotions. And then for you, it's a very important component in your emotional life, that if you have a choleric temperament and your idea of life is, to get stressed and to enjoy it, and especially when you're a leader and you like extreme sports and you're kind of risky, and say probably you play computer, quite probable is that. And also there can be addiction to that as well. So anyway, stress is the thing that consumes a lot of energy. And if it's acute stress, then recovery goes quite efficiently because there was a load and there is no load, and you can recover. But the danger is in the chronic stress, and so it goes, and goes, and nobody knows when it's going to end. So brain doesn't like that. So when you analyze a situation, when you look at yourself from the current situation, first of all, you have to separate chronic stress and acute stress, and pay particular attention to this chronic stress, because all the risks are with it. Professional burnout is quite possible with this one, and actually there's certain risks for your health that you may damage your health. Talking about biohacking, actually what I'm talking about psychological tools and techniques that have to do with your mindful attention to your processes. So what you have here in the brain, in this zone of the brain, this is what program does. And memory about some traumatic events, it's there in your neural nets, and some post-traumatic syndrome and panic attacks, and you get you got this anxious character, so that's what you have to deal with. So if you feel there's some negative emotions or thoughts, they are taking over you, so then you need to develop skills to stop and to switch. So, and for this, people use breathing and meditation and many other things. Or you can just go and walk around fast, and you may go to a gym and lift weights and stuff. Breathing techniques, why so good? Because breathing is super vital function. Without oxygen, we feel bad immediately. At the point when we mindfully, consciously breathing, 4 counts breathe in, 8 counts breathe out, that's important thing. So, and you can see how quickly the level of stress is going away in zones of that generate bad emotions, like hypothalamus and many others, so they're not as active as they were. So that's why the skills they are that as important as keeping your day regime and properly eating, learning new things, gaining new skills, and many more.
Это, наверное, самое такое больное место во всем биохакинге,
The
потому что всем хочется волшебную таблетку. Да, то есть как бы
supplements,
еще раз программа
food supplements. So everybody kind of wants to get this kind of feel for everything. So how to do everything without doing anything. So professor, where is this magic pill? I take it and I will be more balanced, more confident, more leading. So there are no such pills. Any pharmacology, any serious pill that impacts right away, it's
реально испытывает проблемы и заболел.
It's a medicine. So, and it works.
Который прям с одной таблетки.
If you have, it works in a certain way, and so it may damage you. So if you have a young brain, so you don't need these pills, because what these pills do, they activate the systems of dopamine or adrenaline. So they kind of take your resource and they kind of they spend this resource in advance. And it's kind of 1 year you work like a real animal, but for the next year this resource is exhausted. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen to you when you're 40 if you're going to exhaust all your resources, but you do want to live, right? So it would be great to live up to 80 to 100 years or 120 years. So that's why people listen. Food supplements. This is a great category of molecules, a very different one. Every particular food supplement, you have to analyze what it is and how it impacts our organism, and you can find on YouTube a lot of lectures about that. And what we're going to see, there are dietary supplements that help you with your food. Of course, there are some irreplaceable components, and these irreplaceable components, sometimes in the food that you buy, you can find them there. There is a lack of them. So that's why you buy vitamins, you get amino acids and lipids and many more. This is one thing, and special fats. So there is a category that gives energy to our organism, for our brain. For example, some sort of amber acid, and some other acids. So you need to understand how it works. So it's energetic supplement to glucose. Glucose is the main fuel that our organism works on. And when it splits, then there are other molecules. And then this is how you activate your energy exchange. So amber acid. So and those accidents, this is a completely different category of dietary supplements. And the issue of excess of oxygen in our organism, it exists. And it exists since the old days, like 3 billion years ago. The plants, they emitted a lot of O2 in the atmosphere. For plants, it's different. They take CO2, and O2 is the exhaust. So, and what happened as a part of evolution, everything that happens to us, you need to look at it from the evolutionary point of view. So when oxygen was a part of evolution, and so nobody knew what to do, it was a risk that oxygen will spoil everything on the planet. But one of the group of bacteria managed to not to just resist oxygen, but also used it to get additional energy. And these bacteria became our mitochondria, and we have a system of using oxygen is accelerating. So we have antioxidant system, and in the situation of megapolis, or when you have all this pollution and stuff, so and chronic inflammation, this is the active O2 that you have. So that's why you need this additional oxidants. So where we can get them from plants, because for plants the issue of finding oxygen is as important as for us. So we do get some grapes or some other herbs, and it works in plants, and it works when you do it kind of in advance, but don't overload yourself. And there are some molecules that directly impact our brain. This caffeine that reduces the effects of exhaustion. And caffeine-like molecules and different substances and drinks, energy drinks, they kind of work in the same stream, so to speak. So if you are taking caffeine, so usually after that you get tired even more, because what happens is you kind of borrow some energy kind of in advance, and you kind of consume your resource in advance. That's why drinking coffee at the beginning of the day, it's kind of got tired at the beginning of the day. So maybe closer to the evening you can do this. For me, it's ritual to take a cup of tea, to drink a cup of tea before my presentation. So there are many interesting molecules in that. So now if you open database and PubMed, and you can look at the study of different plants for dietary supplements, tea, coffee, there is a lot of interesting things there. As molecular biohacking is on that level. All this should be used very mindfully, like dietary supplements. And because what they do, they work with the system of dopamine, but it's actually very high, it needs a fine-tuning. So what you need to know about dietary supplements. So everything is okay with your brain and organism, so you probably just, postpone this thing till the later, when you're 80 plus, say. And if you're offered a dietary supplement and they tell you, so it's a pill and you're going to work like a real animal and you're going to work like never else, don't believe that this is a dietary supplement. It's some sort of narcotic or narcotic-like, if even it's some sort of medicine that is sold without prescription. So usually it takes for a dietary supplement a few weeks to correct some functions of your organisms and your brain. So one pill cannot do that. So if it's a pill and if it does it so quickly, so it's something narcotic-like. So be very careful with that. So, and my last slides, so they bring us back to the area of psychology, of mindful doing, what we do with our organisms. So you see on the picture, you can see the zone in the brain that we have the associating cortex of the brain. So this is where it is. So this is vision in the back of the head. This is hearing right here on the temples. And between them, there is a zone that collects all these signals. It's a multisensory collection, and so we know how an orange looks like, and we know how it's by touch, and we know and we know how to say orange in different languages. So verbal centers, by a 3-year-old child has 2,000 of them, and at this point they have so-called informational and verbal model of the world. And we use it to plan or to control our behavior, to resolve problems, to realize verbal programs. So if it's a simple problem, then the result comes right away. It's called intuition. If it's a complex problem, then you need to talk about it, you need to think about it. And then what's important, it's not only our idea of the world, it's our idea of ourselves. And this is the foundation of will, mindfulness, and confidence. For example, you decided, so I'm going to get on the diet. So after 6 o'clock, I don't eat. So, and you say to yourself with this associative cortex, but will you be able to control other zones of the brain? That's a separate problem, because besides our plans, there is a center of our needs, and the center of our needs, there are in a deep part of the brain, and the center of hunger says, so I don't have enough glucose, and this I want to eat, so this voice goes to the cortex of, to the low part of the forehead part of the brain. So we're thinking with the top part, and with the frontal part we're doing. So you're thinking that I'm losing weight, and so I finally have my waist back. But here, this voice is telling you to go to the fridge and to put butter on the bread and eat it. And it's like, hey guys, what you're doing? So, but nothing's going to happen because of one sandwich. So that's okay, fine. Okay, I'll do just one sandwich. Tomorrow I'll do my diet. So where is your will? Nowhere. Today, with hypothalamus and your frontal cortex played you. So, but if you're going to be thinking about it all the time, so maybe you get a result at some point 5 years later, and you're going to get off the couch and you begin to run. But all this starts with mindfulness, and mindfulness, this is a function of our top cortex. Parietal cortex. So, and I need to have, so the parietal cortex we describe as the one that thinks, and the frontal one is like impulsive one. So they compare it with your dog. So it's about quick pleasure. And that's why biohacking is one of the ways that you should take to be able to control your needs and desires. And of course, based on how you work with those centers, how you feel yourself within your brain, as a result, you form this emotional state that you live in, something that is called emotional intelligence, and your ability to control it. And if you look at your life path, biohacking, it's not kind of self-purpose. It's one of the ways to make yourself more happy. And what should be applied to this too, say, interesting work, and the work you love, that you know how to do, that bring use and value to the world. This is a whole range of events that happens to our brain, and we are pretty active in it. And because of parietal cortex and frontal cortex. And so if you want to learn more on the adult level, so my book was, new edition of my book was published, Brain and Its Needs. It's for adults. And recently, together with Dmitry and our co-authors, we released a book. For me, it's the first volume. It's Adventures of Team in the Country of Brain. And so there is a quite important text in the book, and it talks about the competition of parietal cortex and frontal cortex, and how it's a part of our awareness of what we do. So this is a QR code on our Telegram channel, so please sign up for this, and thank you very much. And I'm ready to answer your questions.
Весь вклад аплодисментов, который полностью заслуживаете, не скупитесь.
So please applaud our speaker. I'm sure that tomorrow Monday starts, and day after tomorrow, and new life starts. So my tablet wasn't ready for so many questions. So we'll try to ask as many questions as possible. We have 10 minutes for that. If we're not able to answer your questions, so then in the description of Telegram bot, where you were writing your questions, there is a link to a Telegram channel in a stage, and we will be asking our speaker to answer this. So meat, potatoes, and French fries. So this is what will help our speaker to. So we'll give them as a treat for that, and chak and many other desserts. So anyway, use the bot and ask the questions. So here are the questions, many of them. So please be concise answering them. Nikita asks, could you tell us exact cases with negative neurophysiological consequences? Well, let's put it this way. When people that take certain molecules in excessive dosages, many things may happen to them. They damage their sleep with all the consequences. So the most famous one is energy drinks. So people drink these energy drinks with a lot of caffeine, and it's not only addiction that they get, but also they have this kind of changed state, and you either deal with it yourself or you need to go to a clinic. So you're talking about sleep. And here's what I'd like to ask. Recently, I came up with the genius idea to fall asleep having sounds on the background, because I could, and I started falling asleep with the sounds of rain, because I think I kind of, and doing that, once I heard there was a real rain, and I started falling asleep, like that reflex dog. Well, actually, any reflex that can be worked. So don't fall asleep at the wheel in the car when you drive, or so maybe you can. As soon as your wife is talking, you can fall asleep. Yeah, I used to catch my wife when I would walk in, she began to yawn. So the ritual that you have may help you to fall asleep. For me, when I'm an owl and 2 o'clock in the morning, I fall asleep. So, and I fall asleep. Maybe you fall asleep a bit earlier, right? You go to bed. Actually, I also use earplugs. This is really great. You just put them in the ears and it's fine, and it's just great. It works just great, and no extra noise goes in. And on the train and in the plane, I can fall asleep. So my neural networks works differently. So I can't really fall asleep there because
И получается лучше, да, потому что, в принципе, у нас одна из
it
проблем
receives
мозга, у
that
нас
as a
почти все
stress.
области
One
мозга.
problem of the brain, there
То
are
есть
way too many
нейросети
signals in the
проводят
brain.
кучу
So
всякого
neural nets
шума сенсорного,
in the
эмоционального и
brain,
так далее.
they
И
process
вот
a lot of
чуть-чуть его убрать
emotional
можно с
and
помощью пробки, можно с помощью
ambient
фона, можно
noise.
с помощью
And
15-минутного
using a
дневного
plug
сна. Сейчас куча физиологических
or a
данных.
15 minutes sleep, you can mitigate
Ну,
that.
такой вот, да, большой круглый прозрачный шар, и вы как...
So you have like a big balloon that you can travel in.
Вопрос от Workman N729. Является ли этот механизм управления процессами человеческого тела подсознанием? Это одно
Is it subconsciousness that deals with this control of human processes? So many programs that the brain controls the body is realized with this big computer center. Our eye, this is the user that runs between the computers and is trying to steer something himself. So, for example, if we are not steering our breathing, so we're breathing okay. So when we're not controlling our feet, they're kind of working on their own. So I'm talking to you, and my feet kind of work on their own. So therefore, at the point when it's not conscious, then it turns out unconscious, and 95% of processes they happen unconsciously. So the analogy of the centers with GPT chat, it's not just one neural net, it's hundreds of them. There are neural nets that detect hearing signals, visual signals, and this verbal center is the one that unites all of them, that creates a model to communicate with other people. That's the main function of it. So how we are now, say.
Да, вот так вот.
Осознанные сновидения — это заигрывание с мозгом,
Conscious
расслабиться и
dreams.
спать, или интересный способ?
So what is it? Well, it's a completely different technology when people don't sleep and they are not awake. This neurophysiological analysis showed this is a third state. So if you work on conscious dreaming, so you have to
В общем, польза от него примерно столько же, сколько от чтения книг.
you have to take it out from your sleeping time because it's not. Well, here's the point.
Помните, да, на красных прямоугольничках.
We see the dreams
Но
on these red triangles every night, but a regular person would remember the dreams from the last cycle before you wake up. But if you look at statistics, I think that every 15th one remembers all dreams. Could you raise your hand if you see a lot of dreams? Here is statistics. So I'm sincerely jealous of you because you kind of in this cinema and you watch that. But oftentimes people say, you know, in the morning I'm just completely exhausted. I was saving universe. So for those people who constantly see dreams, so for them, conscious dreaming helps them control these techniques and technologies, control the stream of your images. I can't do that, but in my dream, I can say, so no crap to be dreaming of. So, okay, the crap is off. So, no, now we continue sleeping. So that's maximum I can do. I can just consciously cut crap of dreaming. So you can just say something to yourself, kind of stop that, stop this nonsense. So I'm not going to dream that. So we have 3-4 minutes left. So let's go on. So what popular methods of biohacking are myths and they are not efficient? So you talked about it, right? Well, first of all, it has to do to medicine because it's very easy to get a pill. When you get a pill and they say, just you take it once and you will be just an animal. And of course, the same applied to embedding chips in the brain. Elon Musk is a great marketer, but it's not. lot. So you may help somebody who is paralyzed, and when you increase their ability to think, so but you with your wires in the brain, it's like so, and your unique brain, would you really let them embed it there in your brain? So after this lecture, they say, so Professor, I don't need my brain anyway, so take it for tests and experiments. So I don't think that we'll get some chips that I can use my brain without even using the tablet. So well, yeah, maybe it's some underground labs that might do that for you. So if we improve ourselves using biohacking, can we get to immortality? Sadly, the issue of immortality can be resolved because we can't do anything with neurodegeneration, with Alzheimer. So the defective proteins and neurons die. Maybe 100 years, maybe 120 years. That's the real situation. We can't do much.
And for about 40 years, we're trying to fight neurodegeneration because there is accumulation of proteins, and if you impact them, you get a lot of side effects. In these decades, we are building a lot of models of the Alzheimer's. There's a Petri cup, and we're just modeling some kind of neurons, we treat them. But then, if this thing, you give it to a lab rat, they get such side effects that all the organs are going to quit working. So, being immortal on the biological level, even like billionaires and gazillionaires, 95 years, 100 years, 7 heart transplants, but the brain is going to die anyway. And this is actually a great limitation. Otherwise, this kind of walking dead would be living and walking everywhere.
Предательски говорят мне, что 3 миллиарда вопросов я еще не успел озвучить.
We have billions of questions, but not enough time. Not enough time. And that's why we're going to Baki. Guys, I have a lecture, online lecture, Dubynin, and you can add dopamine, sleep, sex, food, and something is going to come out because like in 10 years I've been covering all the topics. Well, a round of applause, please. Find YouTube channel, find all the materials, tons of video, interview. It's going to be fun, and you will learn a lot of good things.